Again, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, depending on where you are in this beautiful continent. As I've been so kindly introduced, my name is Peter Musembi. I'm a marine biologist working in East Africa. And currently I'm working with the Wildlife Conservation Society, Kenya Marine Program, generally on coral reef ecology, as well as interaction between marine species, marine resources with human activities and how each one is affecting the other. So today I'm going to just tell you a story about sharks and rays, which is this magnificent ocean species that are often misunderstood, sometimes feared. And hopefully this is going to interest you and raise awareness of the plight facing sharks and rays in the region, as well as globally. Before I start, I just want to give a brief description or a brief summary of what I do. I do marine biology and ecology, which basically is working with species in the ocean and ecosystem, looking at what species are found in which ecosystems and how these interact with each other, as well as with the adjacent system, especially human system, to either affect each other or benefit humans. I've basically working a lot on coral reef, a bit on seagrass and mangrove areas, as well as other tropical marine ecosystem, rocky shores, as well as a bit on coastal forest. My main work has generally been around East Africa, and I love working in the water. Working in the ocean has been an incredible experience for me. And I love what I do and I enjoy it every day, whether I'm counting fish in the depth of the ocean in Watamu, or working with local community and fishing communities in Kenya, or diving in the depth of Pemba Channel in Tanzania looking for sharks. It's been an incredible experience for me, and I could not have wished for anything less. My work also has been around the region of Western Indian Ocean, which is the part from Somalia going all the way to the eastern part of South Africa, as well as the island state, Comoros, Seychelles, Mauritius, and Madagascar. And my trips around these areas, I've found that the areas are quite diverse. They are incredibly diverse in terms of the ecosystem and species, from expansive large areas of mangrove forests in the northern part of Kenya near the border of Somalia, to deep and drop-off channels within the Pemba channels, and big species and small species, from small whelk shells within the mangrove ecosystem to large humpback whales roaming the ocean. It's an incredible diverse area. And also it's incredibly diverse in terms of the people living in them and their connection with the ocean. There's always something to look up with the different people. They have different connection with the ocean, and there's quite a strong connection with it, either in terms of livelihoods, getting livelihoods from the ecosystem and the resource that are there, or in terms of cultural connection, as well as other aesthetic value. It always appeals to me seeing young children as young as 3 playing in the sand within the shores of coral reefs or so. So it's been an incredible experience for me. And one of the things that I always do is I share what I see, what I experience in all these areas. And like most of you might know, one of the questions that I always get asked is, don't you fear sharks when you get into the ocean? And my usual answer for that is no. And that is because I strongly believe that there are other things that I need to get worried when I'm immersed in the blue water than sharks. And there's a lot of that, both in land and in shark. You don't, in water, you don't need to get worried about shark. And we'll talk about that a bit later to see why. And then another question is how often or what do you do when you encounter sharks in water? And I wish my answer for that would be, other than I don't often see sharks in the water. And we're also going to have a discourse about why I don't see as often shark as possible. And going back to the fear factor of sharks, thanks to the movies that we've watched about somebody being attacked by a shark, it has created a sense of fear within the people that are connected to the ocean, or sometimes not connected to the ocean. That when you get to the ocean, the sharks will be looking for you, which is not true. There's a lot of sharks there. There are only a few that might, and in very, very few circumstances, may be a threat to you, but most of the time it's not. And in terms of what the threats are to the people, there's a lot of other things that are killing more people in the wild other than sharks. And if you know, probably you might not know, but one of the top threat of people in the world, something that kills more people than anywhere close to sharks, are the mosquitoes. But nobody really fears mosquito that much. Only other than just putting a mosquito repellent, you rarely see people having a discourse about how threatening mosquitoes are. And another a close one is humans. Actually, humans are more threats to other humans than sharks also. So sharks are not as threat as we might think they are. And with my over 100 dives in the region, as well as hundreds of other time spent either snorkeling or around waters, I've had very few really countable encounters with sharks. And that's the reason why the response to the second question is, I don't often see sharks in the water. So what has happened to the sharks in the water? A recent study has found that over a quarter of the species of shark species are now threatened. And we've seen a substantial decline in shark population globally. Right now, over 2/3 of the shark population have declined in the last 3 decades or so. A recent study that was done on coral reef sharks throughout the world, covering 58 countries, saw that Kenya and Tanzania in East Africa are some of the countries that are doing really bad in terms of shark population. The shark population there have declined by almost 90%, and most of the reef there, you do not see shark. That's why it's not a surprise that I do not see them. I wish I could be seeing them as often as I want, but that is not the case. Our own study looking at artisanal shark fisheries in Kenya found that the scallop hammerhead shark, a great piece of art in form of a shark species, is the dominant species that is caught by small-scale fisheries. And this is quite small-scale, using really rudimentary fishing gear, but they are still catching sharks. But the most worrisome of that is that over 80% of the individuals of hammerhead sharks that are caught in Kenya are juveniles. And this is a problem. It's a problem because when you get all the juveniles out, the population are declining at a negative rate, that you are not going to see any kind of recovery. Sharks and their close relative rays are particularly very vulnerable to fisheries because, one, they grow very slowly, so their growth rate is quite slow. And also they produce very few young ones. That means if you get within a year, you get five individuals of sharks. There will not be other even 3 individuals of sharks getting into the population. So that means the population is going to be declining substantially as we go. And that is what has happened. Another very rare species that we're seeing now that is completely becoming rare, it's not been sighted in Kenya now for almost 2 decades, is the sawfish, which is a close relative of the sharks, and they are found within near the coast in mangrove or seagrass area in brackish water. We did another study on socio-economic of the sawfish, and most of the people that have been in the fishing area, in the fishing field within the last 20 years, they've not seen a ray. Only very old people that have been fishing for more than 50 years have seen the sawfish. So it's a problem. And for us to understand what is happening, why do we need to bother about sharks? We have to take a step back 450 million years, and that's when the sharks first appeared on Earth. And they've evolved and adapted into these magnificent and diverse creatures of the sea. And just to say that sharks are a bit different from other fish. The other fish are normally classified as bony fish, and the sharks and their relative are classified as cartilaginous fish, or the elasmobranch. And this is because their skeleton is different from the bony fish in that it's made of a cartilaginous skeleton, which makes them being able to move very fast and being able to bend quite easily. And within those years, for 450 million years, sharks and rays have evolved into a diverse number of species. There are currently over 500 species, non-species of sharks and rays in the world. And this starts from as small as there's a shark that is probably 15 centimeters, and they are huge, the great white and the tiger that can go to several meters in length. And just going back to why do we need to bother about sharks? Sharks, they are very important in the ecosystem first. They are what are called apex predators, or they are sitting on top of the food web of the marine food chain. And they are important in balancing the whole of the food web. And they do this by ensuring the species, the population of the species below them are well within what the ecosystem can balance with. And in that, they make sure that the species below them are in good and balanced population, and going all the way until you get to the ecosystem level. So they are in a way they are affecting how seagrass or coral reef system are. And then another thing is they also help in maintaining the ecosystem health in terms of because they are great, they prey or they hunt within this ecosystem. Those prey have to move to another system. So when they do that, they cannot put a lot of pressure on one single site because they have to move as the sharks move. So quite important. In terms of coastal economies, they're very important. The gentle giants of the sea, the manta rays and the whale shark are quite charismatic species, and people like snorkeling or diving with them in all the tropical water or wherever they are found. Currently, especially in the last 20 years, scuba diving with sharks is becoming very popular in coastal community. Only that people are not finding them as often as they probably should. In terms of cultural and spiritual values, sharks are important. If you look globally, in the Papua New Guinea, there's a traditional practice of shark calling, and this is because the people of Papua New Guinea believe that the shark carry the spirits of their ancestors, and there's a way they can go to the ocean and using specific ritual call them, and then they will be like calling their ancestors. In Africa, in East Africa, the whale shark, there's a legend about the whale shark that when God created the whale shark, he saw that it was so beautiful that he had to sprinkle gold and silver coins on top of it. And that's why they believe the whale shark has the spots. And this emphasizes how spiritual and character connected people were with the sharks. But what is happening to the shark? One of the main cause of the decline in shark population is overfishing. As we've seen in all other kind of fish in the last, in this century, in the 20th century, in the 21st century, the technology of fishing has significantly increased. And that means people can take more time in the water, they can fish for a long time, they have storage facility that they can stay in the ocean for quite an extended time. This was not the case previously. Although sharks have been fished quite historically in East Africa, there's evidence that sharks have been fished for the last 100 years. But back then, people could not take as much as they wanted. They just took what they were able to because of technology, as well as, would I say, responsibility. They will not take 100 species of sharks in a day. So in the last 30 years, we've seen a lot of overfishing, immense overfishing of sharks. And because of their life history, the shark would not, their population cannot recover. And then looking at another very gruesome process, the shark finning. Shark finning is the process of people going out in the sea and then chopping off shark fins and then letting the sharks to die there. And this is because they want the fins. And for you to get a few kilos of fins, you need a lot of sharks to do that. So because of space or something, you cannot keep the whole carcass of shark in your boat. So you'll go there chopping off the fins and letting the shark die a gruesome and cruel death. And shark finning is used in Southeast Asia, especially in China and in Hong Kong, to make a soup, a shark fin soup, which it's known that it's a high status meal. For those from evidence, people are saying that it doesn't even taste very well, but it's a high status food. Only a few people can afford it because it's quite expensive. So this one, the overfishing and shark fishing has decimated. It's now estimated that there's over 100 million sharks that are killed every year. And that's a lot of sharks, considering that some take 5 years to mature, some even 20 years to mature, and then they bring forth very few species, offspring. That means if you get even just 1 million sharks, that is a lot of damage of getting to the system. So, and then of course there are other factors that are affecting system within the coast: habitat degradation. There's a lot of coastal development. Some sharks are using shallow coastal areas as a nursery ground, but these ones are being decimated as there's coastal development. There are ports, there are resorts that are being built, mangrove cutting, and climate change related coral bleaching and mortality are also affecting the habitats where the sharks are, as well as pollution and all these other factors that are affecting our ocean system. So first, what do we do? And we have the problem at hand that this is what is affecting our sharks. One, there are currently efforts everywhere, global, regional, and national initiative to promote, to reduce the decline in shark population, as well as promote their recovery. One process that is ongoing in Kenya, for example, and it's part of a global initiative for all the country, is developing a national plan of action. So a national plan of action would literally, basically is looking at the status of your shark species and population in your country, what are the threats, and then developing either policy or management measures at local level that are especially agreeable to most of the stakeholders, that this can be used to promote the recovery of shark population. But also there are things that we can do at personal level. For example, there's still a lot of misinformation and myths about sharks and raising within our masses, within the public. Everybody just think when you get into the water, you will be mauled, will be eaten by a shark. That is not true, as we've said, and we've seen there are over 500 species of sharks. So you cannot, it's not that all sharks can be a threat. Actually, most of sharks are not a threat. Actually, the more humans are a threat to sharks than the sharks. So develop knowledge at personal level, develop knowledge of this species, their population, what is affecting them, and spread this within your peers, your colleagues, your family. Other things is environmental consciousness. We often see, for example, pollution or trash on the beach. What do we do about that? Why did people just throw trash on the beach? It's because people are just either ignorant or they are not conscious. They just throw trash wherever. So develop environmental consciousness and knowing that the little things you do that you feel throwing up a paper bag or something on the beach is not significant. It is significant because you, someone else, and someone else are going to do that. So be environmental conscious on what you are doing. And then attend talks like this one to just continue developing your knowledge and developing it. I personally talk to anybody who is willing, and everybody, wherever they are, either in a public transport or wherever. Because I believe when I tell 100 people, probably 50 of them will not give it any thought, but probably 40 or 20 or 2 will. So with this, I think we're going to develop a conscious population that is conscious of what is happening. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any question, and let's work in make sure that our sharks, we are witnessing recovery of our sharks. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was very informative. And then you look at these sharks and they're so beautiful, and then you see what's being done, and then your mood is just like, your heart hurts so much to see it. So I think we're going to go onto the questions now, and I'm going to start. I have a few questions for you as well, but I think let's start with the questions that is currently in the chat. So the first one is from Anne Wambue. I think I'm saying that right. She's asking, how long is the gestation period of a shark?
Yeah, it depends on the sharks. The shark that their period is 18 months. The shark that the period is 2 or 3 years. So it depends on the shark species.
And so then you said they take, I think you said they take about 20 years to reach maturity.
Sorry?
Some species take about 20 years to reach maturity.
Yes.
Or how long?
Yeah.
And if they died a natural death, then how long do they live?
There are the shark. I think the whale shark lives to around 70 probably. The green shark lives to really hundreds of years. Like I think the green shark is like 400 years or something. Yeah. And then there is the small reef shark. Probably anywhere at 7-10 years.
The sharks that's there in Kenya, are they? How to say? Are they more demersal? Are they more in depth? Do they swim in the depths, or do they come to the shallow areas often?
The reef shark come to the damas, so that you'll find them in very shallow areas. You like some of the reef shark, you'll see them. You can see them in water as you're walking on the beach. And then of course you have the pelagics, the blue one, the blue sharks, the treasure shark. You likely see them in the deep.
And so you see them when you're snorkeling, or do you only see them when you're scuba diving?
Both when scuba diving or snorkeling, you can see.
So before I go on to the other questions, there's two more questions in the chat. Before we go on to that, so because in scuba diving, you're told to breathe, no? They
Yeah,
say it doesn't matter what, you must just remember to always breathe. So
yeah,
when you do see these sharks, because I've never seen a shark underwater in its natural environment, except like with shark cage diving, but not when I was scuba diving or anything. But I always worry that I'm going to not breathe, not because I'm of fear, because I'm excited. So do you not get excited and forget to breathe?
yeah. I do. I actually get excited, but I don't forget to breathe. I just believe because it's very rare. So if you see one, you just leave whatever you're doing and concentrate in it for just a few minutes.
And just
Because
take in the moment.
yeah,
Yeah.
you don't know when you're going to see it again. But still, yeah, because probably it's because I've done it so long the diving that I can't forget to breathe. So I continue breathing. Yeah.
Okay, it's good to hear. And we're glad to have you here with us. This next question there is from Najim Ahmed Mohammed. He's asking, is there any possibility to sample some tissues for genetic research to see the connectivity of sharks around the West Indian Ocean region?
Yeah, yeah, great to hear from you, Najim. I know Najim, we work together in Comoros. Yeah, currently there are some efforts. There are people, I know there's at least two projects in Kenya that are collecting genetic samples and looking at the connectivity of the population. And so that's one of the things. There are other questions also that they're trying to answer. For example, the black tip reef shark is known to do what's called phyllopaty, where the mother will come and nursing around the same area. So for you to do that, you need to see whether the individual that is coming in is the same one, and where, if the population, for example, the population in Kenya is similar to the population in Tanzania. So there are currently not as many because, of course, collecting the genetic samples and also doing the analysis is quite expensive and requires some funding. So yeah, there is, but not I would say not as much as I would want them to. Probably one of the things that can work is cross-country collaboration. Instead of just one project collecting samples all across the East Africa coast, there's someone doing it in Kenya, another person doing it in Tanzania, Comoros, and then from the analysis, there can be sharing of data and seeing how the populations are.
Right. May I ask, how would you pull off, do you perhaps know how to pull off such a study? Like, how do you get the tissue sample?
One is from because they're targeted by fisheries. So when you go to a landing site and they've caught a shark, you can take samples from there. I think that is the main one. And technology is changing, and now that there's the eDNA, where you could collect water samples from an area where you think there might be shark and see whether because as they swim, ideally they might be shedding some skin scale. So when you collect the water sample, you might get some shark samples from that. But the main one now currently is the landing, the fisheries landing.
All right, because the picture that you had there with all the shark fins, where is that? Was that somebody that got caught?
So yeah, so those ones are caught in gill nets or in hand line, and then most of the time it's not a very big ship, and they need 1 ton of fins. So they'll just be chopping off the fins and dropping the whole carcass in the water, and just retaining the fin.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go to Gina and Tumbu Isaka's question now. And she wants to know, can you please tell us more about what happens in the Eastern Africa regarding the cultural and spiritual beliefs?
Yeah, go on.
No, there's a follow-up after that, where she says, what strategies do you guys use to convince such people that their beliefs are right or wrong?
So I think we know that one of the things that we are actually getting to know is there are cultural and spiritual practices that were being carried previously before, I would say, before the current management strategy, that some were not true, but they were meant to either persuade people not to fish certain areas or not to do resource in a certain area. Those were there. Now, if you look at, you cannot put those kind of belief empirically, like in a scientific study, and start looking at this. These were cultural belief. They are worldviews, like just like if you are Christian, you believe in this, and so you cannot put such things on an empirical test. People just believe in them. Some work, some were not working, but they were good in informing or people trying to understand what is around there. I think most of the cultural and spiritual belief is an effort by human being to try to understand what is happening and then bring order. So yeah. I don't think it's up to, personally, for me to go and persuade. Of course, there are, unless it's a myth completely has been, there's enough evidence this is not true, then that we can have a discourse. But when it's cultural, spiritual belief, I don't think it's up to me to tell someone that this is not the right way. It's just like me going to tell a Christian, you shouldn't be believing in the Bible. A Muslim, stop believing in Christ. It's things that are in people, and some are very good. And if you look at why are they were just to bring order and people trying to understand what is happening. Yeah. So some you could, some if they are myths and they are not correct, you could just go there and tell them this is it. But if you don't have evidence whether it is true or not, then it's not up to you to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah. When you're speaking to an audience, there's a saying that says that the forest is made up of many trees. And so each tree will have its own belief system. Yeah, and so you're just giving them the facts, yeah. But I think it's always nice to, like the story you told about the whale shark with the glitter. It's always a very heartwarming story to you. So just on that, the reason you'll know better as to, you can answer me, but you do know the answer as to why they are lightly colored underneath, and then darker on the top, scientifically speaking or biologically speaking.
Yeah, I think it's something that they've adapted to, and it's one of it's a strategy to avoid predators when they're swimming, and then the predator it's on top, then it's a bit dark, and it's camouflaging with the water, so they're sort of hiding, and that's why the down is lighter. But I do not, I've not really done any work to be 100% sure that this is why they are dark and this is why they are light. Yeah.
Now I'm asking that because I'm Muslim, but I know when I learned about that, and I learned that they light on the top because you're looking up and they dark at the, it spoke to me. I got very excited about that fact. That's why I'm asking you about it. Then I don't see any more questions in the chat, and I don't see. Oh, Roland Goetz, you've got a question.
Okay, thank you, Peter. This is more of an observation. I know you're concentrating on the East African, Indian Ocean sharks. I'm a park manager in Angola on the Atlantic side, and I'm really concerned at certain times of the year. I'm involved in controlling 120-kilometer of coastline on the Atlantic seaboard. And at certain times of the year, hammerhead sharks aggregate in an area called Cabo San Bras. And I personally witnessed literally hundreds of hammerhead sharks being caught in gill nets and harvested for their fins for the Asian market, especially the Chinese market, which is increasing here in Angola. And it is really, I mean, for me, a cause of concern that these sharks are being illegally harvested in the height of their breeding season. So I don't know if you have heard about it, but certainly it's something that is of great concern to me as a conservationist in Angola. Just an observation and bringing it onto the radar screen.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a concern when you are fishing any kind of species. It's being targeted when it's aggregating, whether it's a spawning aggregating or it's a feeding aggregating. It's can easily be fished, all of it, because during that time almost every other individual is there. So fishing in aggregating areas is quite a concern. And one thing that people are trying to work is having probably a temporary closure within. Of course, it will take time. It will need a lot of political will. But having, if you know that they are aggregating at a certain time of the year in a specific area, then it makes sense to close that area during that time and let them breed and do that, and then you can open it up. But it's not as easy. It's actually easier said than done, because it requires political will. It requires a lot of engagement with whoever is involved. And when it's something like it's illegal and there's a lot of sort of human top predators involved, it can be very risky for people that are involved. So I know it's quite tricky, and the literature is there. Hammerhead are actually known to aggregate feeding aggregation, spawning aggregation. Hammerheads are known to do that.
Peter, just to follow on with you, I totally agree with you. The difficulty in Angola is the political will component. Also, the communities that are living illegally in the park in that area are displaced people from the war. They didn't live there in historic times. They only moved in from 1975 because of the Civil War. And with the breakdown of the traditional structures, legal structures, or control structures, these people have virtually no control. And there isn't the political will, because Angola is still developing post-war reconstruction of their societies. So, but what would be very useful to us as conservationists in Angola is if you are on any international platform looking at shark and ray conservation when it comes to the legislation, if you could put it onto the radar screen for us as a serious concern that has been brought to your attention on the West Coast and in Angola, perhaps we can get it onto the political agenda. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think you're right. That is a very good platform to do that. Yeah, because if we have this kind of sharing, we can have such kind of information and we can pitch it in other areas, as well as you guys and people around. If you're attending, for example, there's a WIOMSA conference coming up, go there, pitch it. When it's there's a lot of noise made, I think eventually people go to pressure. So I think I 100% accept that and agree with you that is one of the ways that it can work.
So then I'm just going to end off by asking you one last question. Like you spoke about people that have a strong connection to the ocean. Yeah. So I'm guessing that you had a strong connection to the ocean growing up as well. And so when you became, or you decided that you want to be a marine biologist one day, did you realize that you're not only going to see the magic, that you're going to see all these difficult problems? And how do you feel when you see, the shark pollution, the fins getting cut off, and you see the pollution and you see those ghost nets? How does it make you feel now?
if you'd asked me probably when I was young that I'll become a marine biologist, probably I wouldn't have said yes. It didn't. It was interesting, but it didn't interest me that much to want to follow that. But as time went by, and then I actually got connected and got exposure to it, I felt like I would have probably made a mistake if I would have done something else. That's what I feel. I feel like this is where I belong. This is what I want to do, and it's the good thing with everything. One, the field is quite diverse in terms of one, the system. You go diving, even in the same place, you're going to see something very different. And then in terms of the other connection, people are connected in very nice way. And you see how people's faces glow when they're in the ocean. You feel like they're actually meant to be here, and they feel it. They feel nice. So it's quite interesting for me to have done this and to enjoy this. I think this is what I'm meant to do. I see how it goes, but I enjoy it 100%.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you have that passion. And thank you for all the effort and the hard work you're putting into it, along with your passion. Okay, so with that, oh, Peter Musila.
Hi.
Another Peter. Hi, Peter.
Hi. Thank you, Peter, and yeah, Vanity. I have a question to you, Peter, about the methods you use for monitoring this shark. Because, like you're aware, here in Watamu, just to mention that I work in Watamu, and we have a project here about the same monitoring sharks. And I want to ask, do you think it's possible, like, to integrate the data from all these regions, considering that our like, for me, I would say it's just to mention, like last week I saw 9 adult black tips right at the edge of the Watamu Marine Park, and I think it's something that it's quite common because I've been seeing the park. This my question is about the methods you're using, and if we can integrate this method along our area of scope, and yeah, and also ask if you know about the seasonality of the black tip reef sharks, if you know how they I mean, yeah, like the seasonality, when they come to the shallows, when they go out, and at what period they forage in particular areas, of if there's any specific research concerning that. And the final question is about citizen science. Do you think citizen science can be used particularly as a tool in this shark and ray conservation? Yeah.
Thank you, Peter. So the first response I think I'll give on the methods, as generally doing work in the marine system is a bit complicated. It's not very obvious like in other areas. For example, when you're looking at shark species population in a terrestrial protected area, the area might be, for example, fenced, so the species are moving around within a fenced area, which is very different from the ocean. The ocean is not fenced, so species move quite alone. So that's one. Secondly, specifically on sharks, there are species, there are some that species are known to be specific, site-specific, so they'll hang around an area for some time. But even within that an area, the what is called home ranging ecology, which is where the species will be operating, is quite big. It's not a small one. So for you to come up with the appropriate method, you need to, one, know exactly what you want to answer and think carefully of the method. Sometimes you might integrate several methods to do that. And just generally, sharks are known to move around some big area. And that's why people have used like the usual UVC visual sensors that are done with fish might not be very appropriate for sharks, because you're doing your transit within 100 meters, the shark is moving within a kilometer. And then that's why things like baited videos might be appropriate. Which means, one, you can get very deep with a baited video. You can take it to 100 meters. With your diving, you might not get that deep, of course, unless you technical skills to do that. So that is one thing. That's one method that has been used in your baiting. With the bait, you are attracting the shark. The downfall of that is that a baited video, unless you do it over quite an extended period of time and space, is that it's only taking around, if you put a video, it's taking around probably 10 or 20 meters radius. So if a species moved far away and it has not been attracted by the bait, you might miss it. And that's why it's very important, as I'm saying, to incorporate other methods. Other methods that have been used, for example, is acoustic tagging, where you're tagging the shark, and then you have the receiver. Anytime it passes through that place, it can be the signal are picked by the receiver. And then there's then genetics, where you can collect sample and see where the shark is moving. They have specific markers where a certain individual of shark has a specific marker where you can follow what is happening. So the thing is, one, we're still very limited in terms of especially resources to do that kind. And that's why we end up using method like you just mentioned, something like citizen science. That can work because you, for example, Peter, cannot move along the Kenyan coast, but if you are in Watamu, somebody else is in Mombasa, another person is in Comoros, you can all be collecting some information that you can share, and then when you bring it together, then probably you'll see a pattern that is moving. So it depends on your question, the question you want to do, and then also your resources, the methodology, the method that you want to use in the start. But collaborating among people is one of a sure way of making sure that you have the right information, as well as collecting data over long term. For example, things like seasonality, you cannot know the seasonality unless you collected it over an extended period of years, probably 4 years, 5 years. You'll see the pattern. If there's a clear seasonality, you'll see the patterns in the data. So yeah, all this method can be incorporated depending on your resources, your question, the question you want to answer, and if people are willing to collaborate. And I don't know the seasonality of the sharks in Watamu. I do not have enough information to specifically point the seasons they are in there.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter.
Hi, I see this is like every time you want to end, Aisha, there's another question popping in. Did you get Gina's question? Using shark's fin, what method do you use to identify the shark species? Because you said there is about 500 species.
Yeah, I think they mainly use a genetics method to identify the species. I've not done it myself, but I've seen, like for example, there's if you are in the field of sharks, you know somebody called Rima Zabado, who is I think in the IUCN Shark Specialist Group for Sub-Saharan Africa. She's done a training in Kenya with government officials to how to collect the samples and how to make sure they are not contaminated and they can be identified to species.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you for sharing with us, number one, your enthusiasm for the ocean and your work, and, you know, just the kind of knowledge that separates the theory from the actual conservation work that's actually happening out there at the moment. That's just very interesting to you know, walk into or swim into your world. Thank you, Aisha. We really appreciate handling the Q&A as well. And it's fantastic that all of you joined us for the session. Please join us for the other events this week. If it's in your field of interest, we would love to have you. All the events are free of charge. Thank you, everybody. And with that, we're going to say goodbye. Thank you, Peter. We'll collaborate in the future again.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you everybody for coming to this talk.